For the past 2 years, the TC2335 by K&F has been my go-to tripod for travelling abroad. Because it can fold down small enough to fit inside my bag rather than having to hang off the side of it, then airport security can't be awkward, and it only weighs 1.8 pounds, which means it keeps me well within weight limits. But K&F have now released a successor to this in the form of the BA225, which they very generously sent to me to test out. Now, I don't know if this has actually been designed as a specific replacement to the 2335, but it's fundamentally the same basic tripod but with several key changes. The most striking of these changes being the colour scheme. The 2335 was all grey and had branding all over the legs. The 225 has dropped all of this branding apart from a tiny logo on the ball head, which gives the tripod a much slicker and cleaner look. And they've also replaced all of the grey accents with deep orange, which seems to be more in line with most of their tripods these days, such as the SA254T1, which I'm using now and I reviewed a few weeks ago. Now, while this tripod has a much nicer overall look, that isn't really going to make any difference to the usability. Thankfully though, there are plenty of other, more subtle changes which do improve the ergonomics. The tension grips of the 2335 were very hard rubber, while the 225 is a slightly softer rubber and has a different shape, which makes them easier and much more comfortable to grip onto. The release clips at the top of the leg have also been altered to make them easier to open. They've not only now got a larger recess behind them to make it easier to get your fingers in behind the clip, but the clip now goes straight through the leg and comes out the other side, essentially forming a button that you can push the clip out from. The legs on the 225 open slightly wider, which does create a more stable platform, but at the expense that the top of the legs now sits slightly lower. However, this has been more than offset by the fact that the 225 has a double center column compared to the single center column of the 2335. There's one column inside the other, which effectively means you can raise the center column up almost twice what you otherwise could have. This gives the 225 a maximum raised height of 152 centimeters versus only 134 centimeters on the 2335. Now, at maximum height, this tripod is reasonably sturdy. There is some hint of shake that hangs around, and it becomes very noticeable when using heavier weights. I tested this out using the Sigma 150 to 600mm Contemporary fitted onto my A7 III, and that had a thick metal L bracket hanging underneath it. Now, the tripod was able to hold that amount of weight, but at 600mm and with a fairly reasonable breeze in the air, there was some clear movement in the camera. Obviously though, that is a very extreme scenario, and I imagine the majority of people considering this tripod have no intention of putting that much weight on it, especially at maximum elevation. If you use this tripod with more reasonable load levels and at lower elevations, it's proven to be more than up to the task. Now, like the 2335, this is a carbon fiber tripod, but this one feels a lot sturdier. Almost like they're using thicker carbon in the legs. There's also the fact that many areas of the 2335 were plastic, such as the tops of the tripod leg mounts, which on the 225 are now made of metal, which gives an overall better build quality. The tripod head has even seen an improvement. The top plate on the 2335 was Arca-Swiss compatible, but it was a weird triangle shape that sometimes made trying to mount a camera on a bit tricky. Whereas the 225 has got a much more conventional design that works so much easier. And the final change is the inclusion of a detachable leg, which when coupled with the ball head means that this can be used as a monopod. I don't personally use monopods, but if I were to, then the inclusion of one built into a tripod would make life so much easier rather than having to carry the two things around separate. The only real drawback to all these changes is that in improving the build quality, replacing a lot of plastic with metal and adding a second center column has pushed the weight up by about 14%, from 852 grams on the 2335 up to 975 grams. But despite all these changes, the 225 still maintains all of the features of the 2335, such as being able to mount the center columns in upside down for very low angle shots, and being able to flip the legs right the way up and over for much more compact storage. In summary, they've taken a great travel tripod and improved it in near enough every aspect, as long as weight isn't a problem. So for anyone interested in this tripod, there is a link to it in the description down below, which, just to be clear, is an affiliated link. So if you purchase this tripod through that link, I will earn a commission from it. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. As always, if you have any questions or queries, feel free to leave them in the comment section. While you're down there, if you found this video helpful and you haven't already done so, then please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons, and then hopefully we'll see you in the next video.